Well, let's speak now to Udi Goren. His cousin Tal was among those kidnapped by Hamas. Thank you so much, Udi, for speaking to us. I'll come on to the latest developments we've heard about what might potentially be happening in terms of hostage negotiations. But first of all, I want to ask you, because I know this will have been a very distressing couple of weeks or so for you. What is the last thing you know in terms of your cousin's whereabouts?
First of all, thank you, Lakshmi, for having me on and allowing me to speak on behalf of those who can't speak right now. And the last we know of Tal, that his phone was traced to the Gaza Strip. Actually, it was traced to Khan Yunis, the town that was heavily bombarded last night, which is a part of, the message that we are trying to give out, that we have to stop. That's directly related to what was just said. We have to stop the bombing because we don't know where the hostages are. And as long as there are bombings, it's not just the risk of when Hamas might or might not release them, but it's an actual threat to our own people every single day.
And now that we have heard reports that negotiations are at a serious stage, we haven't had much more in the way of details yet. But with that development, how much more hopeful do you feel?
Tal is a Romanian national, so he might be included in this deal. I don't want to get my hopes up because they may shatter to the ground, and it's been difficult enough as is. My hope is to get everyone out, not just my cousin. Of course, he's my top priority, but there's no civilian that should be sacrificed at this point or at any point. There are no civilians that should pay this price on neither side, neither Israelis nor Gazans. This is a ray of light. This is seeing those two women going back to their family 2 days ago. It's unbelievable. And now 50 more can be saved, and we have at least 150 more to save. And this hope that it's given Israelis and the Israeli public, that is what we need now. Then that's what we're going to need long term. This is what the Gazans need as well. But this is by far the darkest hour that Israel has ever had. And to get us out of here, more violence would not get us there. What we need is hope. And what we need is a resolution. And to stop the violence, I mean, the numbers that you've mentioned of the casualties so far are just unimaginable. And they will keep rising. As long as the war continues, we keep rising. I've heard Prime Minister Sunak's declaration and Sir Starmer that followed. And I don't think there's any Israeli that doesn't appreciate the attention and the firm stance that the UK takes. But and the stress that they point or that they put on their own responsibility to human lives. And I would like to ask them personally, for every family of the hostages, please make sure that this principle is upkept, because Israel does have other interests in mind with the grand maneuver and taking care of Hamas. But it's impossible to conceive that a modern democracy would sacrifice a civilian life for any reason when there is an opportunity to save them.
But Udi, and forgive me, this might be a difficult or unwelcome question, but what do you think the Israeli authorities should have done instead? Because in terms of Hamas, when they took the hostages, what would you have liked to have seen Israel's reaction as instead of what they've done?
In the first couple of days of this war, Israel had to fight and fight hard to contain the situation. No doubt about it, there was nothing to do at that point. But once the situation has been contained, we are now still defending ourselves from Gazan rockets. That is true. But right now we are on the offense. And this offensive is risking the lives of our civilians. You know, I keep stressing this out because during a war, people make the difference between soldiers' lives and civilian lives. I don't see it that way, but that's what's acceptable. So I'll talk to that. But once we have the situation contained, and that has been spoken by any mitigator, any person that has specialized in negotiations, the time window to get the civilians out is short. It would not last. It would not last this land incursion. So what Israel has to do after the state has failed on October 7th, the state has failed us. It has failed to protect my family. It has failed to make sure that hundreds of thousands of people are safe. And right now, they have to compensate for it and make sure that these people, these families that have already paid such an atrocious toll, don't pay again. Right now, Israel has to commit to its principles. It was said very loud and clear in your parliament. What sets us apart is that we value human lives, is that we value our civilian lives, and we have to prove it. It's not enough to talk about it. We have to prove it on the ground. And going into this land incursion before the last of the hostages out of Gaza means that we have given up on this principle.
Well, Udi, thank you. And I know this can't have been easy for you to talk about, so we really appreciate your time in coming on the programme and speaking to us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. That's Udi Goren there. Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News.